I wasn't sure if this was possible because of the way this knot is tied, but what might look like the hardest Begleri to make is actually kind of easy because I figured it out. The monkey's fist knot has been the standard for the Begleri, which is just a simple and super fun skill toy that fits in your pocket. But what if you're bored of making the same old monkey's fist Begleri? Well, have no fear because the globe knot is here. We'll need the usual materials for Begleri making, mainly paracord and some steel ball bearings, which we have available as a kit at paracordweavers.com, links below. Now this might look daunting, but trust me, it's far easier than it looks. To start this one off at the midpoint, I'm going to make 4 wraps around my index finger. Then with the end on the right, I'm going to go under, over, and over the 4 wraps to my left. Pull the cord through. Then with the end on the left, I'm going to go under, and over the 4 wraps to the right. Following that, both strands are going to make a second pass, tracing the same path and direction of the strands up top and at the bottom. So just double up those cords going both ways, and if this starts to get confusing, don't worry about it. I myself had to tie and retie this several times just to get the hang of it, as I haven't tied it in a while. So if you don't get it on the first try, don't worry. After that, we're going to slightly separate the 2 strands up top, and then the right strand is going to pass in between them, doing the opposite pattern, going under, and over. Now, I'm using a lacing needle to make it easier to see, but you don't need one if you don't have one. And then just pull that cord through. Then the opposite cord does a similar move on the bottom. I'm going to separate the 2 cords and pass that one going over, and under to the right, and then pull the cord through. Now, believe it or not, we're almost done. One last move. When I turn my finger over, there's a slightly larger space here. And with the strand on the right, that's going to pass through this space going under, and over to the left. And just like that, we've tied the globe knot. Easy, right? So I know it doesn't really look like a globe knot right now, but we're going to work on that. From here, we're going to work the slack out of the knot, and the strand that we last worked with is a strand that's going to get shortened. We want the majority of the excess moved through the knot to the opposite strand. Now this part you're just going to have to go slow and methodical and keep track of which way the slack is moving. But to be honest, it's actually less confusing than tightening a monkey's fist. As much as I'd love to show the entire process of working the slack out, that would make this video way too long and nobody would want to watch that. But trust me, it's way easier than it looks. Just be present and pay attention to the cord you're working on to not lose your spot. That being said, after some initial tightening and the knots get smaller, I can remove my finger, from the knot that is, and I'm going to place my ball bearing on the inside. Then work the rest of the slack out and completely tighten the globe knot. Now at this part in my initial testing, I thought it wasn't possible to tie a second globe knot because I had 2 ends coming out from the same part of the knot, and I wasn't sure which one to continue with, but the solution was easier than I thought. Turns out all you have to do is tie the exact same knot like before, but notice the end that I start wrapping my index finger with this time to start the knot has our globe knot on it. And from there we just tie the exact same knot and steps like before. However, it will be a tad harder to do because on one end there will be a globe knot that has to pass in and around the strands. It's not as annoying as it looks, as the knot can be tied loosely, so just follow the exact same steps as before. You'll just have to make space and lift up the cords when you need to. I'm going to show this part a bit more quickly as we're just repeating the same globe knot steps. But anytime you need to pass the globe knot through the knots, you just make some space by working slack to that particular spot to make enough room for the knot to pass under. Now, if this is your first time hearing about a Begleri, it's a simple skill toy, Greek in origin, that was originally 2 beads on a piece of string. However, modern adaptations of the Begleri have shown up as many different styles of beads made of modern materials. A great example is a round square that makes a ton of different versions. The more popular and accessible version though has been the monkey Swiss Begleri, though even easier than that, you could just put a few hex nuts on a piece of paracord. They're just a great way to keep your hands busy, de-stress, and even quit bad habits like smoking or doom scrolling. Great thing about it too is that you can keep one in your pocket and always have a set on you. So I've always wondered about the creation of the first paracord Begleri, and unfortunately I couldn't find a definitive answer as to who made the first one, specifically using a monkey's fist. Now it would have been really cool to know who started it, but much like the Cobra Knot paracord bracelet, we'll never know who made the first one. But we're thankful of course that someone did. Now I will say this globe knot Begleri isn't as easy as tying the monkey's fist one, but for those of you that have made 1.5 million of those and can tie them in your sleep like me, this is definitely a refreshing take, at least in my opinion. In case you want to go even simpler though, as I mentioned, a few hex nuts on a piece of paracord or string will work just as well, but I will say that these paracord wrapped versions are a bit easier on the knuckles. Now I've even done a paracord wrapped hex nut version as well, so there are a lot of options to choose from. Once the second globe knot is tied, we just start to firm it up like before, and then place our second ball bearing inside, and then continue to firm it up completely. While you're firming everything up, you can also start to set the middle joiner cord length. And the best average length is about 6.5 inches or 16.5 centimeters. Now before I completely remove all of the excess paracord, I realized the knot doesn't completely cover the bearing, as if you look closely there are some tiny spaces. So I kind of thought if I dunked the knots in freshly boiled water, that would kind of solidify everything. So I tried that, and it did to a degree. It made the globe knot a bit more round and globy, so I went ahead and tried that. However, this didn't quite do what I thought. In fact, it might have made the gaps a bit more prominent. What it did do though was make the globe knots a bit more globy, as in round, as most of the excess was shrunken out as the knot contracted around the ball. I think the only way to really hide the gaps is by stitching the globe knot with some microcord or 95 cord, which I do have a video on, so you can do that if you want. But that being said, with my joiner cord set and the knots tied, I can snip off the excess cords, melt them where they are, and press down on them to finalize everything. And just like that, we have tied the globe knot Begleri. And of course, one last thing, how well do these play? Well, I'd say they are super comparable to the monkey's fist Begleri, but they're actually a hair smaller in size compared to the monkey's fist, but only very slightly. The texture and feel of them are different though due to the globe knot, but perhaps something not that noticeable when you're playing. Either way though, they make a fun set. And if you're looking for more interesting paracord Begleri that aren't monkey's fists, you can also check out the Turk's Head Knot Begleri, or what I like to call the Woggleri, or you can learn some tricks with this video as well.